Hello, everyone. This is Alpha Omega. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important elements in nuclear power generation. That's uranium. We'll take a look at Cameco, a company that mines, refines, processes, and even sells uranium, and review their performance. And then, we'll also discuss the outlook for the future. Currently, Cameco's stock price is $50.73. Now, that's not exactly a cheap price. However, personally, I don't think $50.73 is expensive. If you look at this chart, this is a one-year chart, you probably won't think the stock price is going up. But if you look at the 5-year chart, you'll see that the stock price has been steadily rising. As I'll explain later, the demand for uranium is going to be very high in the future. So, Cameco will be the one to meet that demand, and as Cameco handles that demand, well, as they meet that demand, their sales will naturally have to increase. If that happens, the stock price will inevitably go up, so for those reasons, I don't think the current stock price is expensive. I think it would be good to keep that in mind. Now, they made this statement in the first quarter of 2025. They announced it on May 1st, and what they said was that, in the long term, the supply is uncertain. The reason they said it like that is because there is actually a lot of demand. There is a huge demand, but the amount of uranium we can supply right now is only about this much. So the question is, who is actually going to fill the gap? So, who is going to do it? Cameco can do it. If they fill this gap, if they support this demand well, Cameco's sales will naturally have to go up. That's what they're talking about right now. The reason demand is increasing like this is because many countries are currently building new nuclear power plants. And then, there's the small modular reactor that we've talked about several times. The number of countries adopting this is also on the rise. So, I've put together a table listing the countries that are currently adopting nuclear energy, and because of the uranium demand from these countries, the price of uranium is bound to go up in the future. That's why Cameco's outlook seems promising. It would be good to keep that in mind as well. Not long ago, there was this news as well. If you look at May 1st, you can see it there. They probably called it May 1st. On May 1st, the price of uranium, specifically, the price of yellowcake, which is called U308, rose to $70. The reason for that was, well, in April, new demand appeared. New customers showed up, and these customers now want uranium in the third quarter. And not just for the third quarter, they want to receive uranium supplies even beyond the third quarter, all the way past 2030. So, uranium demand has increased again right now. That's why the price of the raw material called yellowcake has gone up to $70. It might be good to keep that in mind as well. And about tariffs, I'll talk a bit more about tariffs later on. So right now, Cameco is mining uranium in Canada, and then in Kazakhstan, they have a joint venture. What is it called? They created something called Inkai, and they're mining uranium there as well. So they're saying that in 2025, they'll produce about 26 million pounds of uranium. And besides that, they're also going to make money from services. To briefly explain what this fuel services side is, they do refining, conversion, and manufacturing. Basically, they dig up the ore from the ground. They extract uranium, which is called ore. They turn this into something called yellowcake. This is U308. After making this, they convert it into a gas called UF6. Make this again into U2O, powder. This process is called fabrication. And once fabrication is done, they put this into tubes. They put it into zirconium rods. Then, they sell it to nuclear power plants. All of these steps together are called fuel services. It would be good to keep that in mind. And something to pay attention to here is this. According to past news, Inkai was supposed to produce an outlook of 8.3 million pounds, but in the first quarter, they only managed to produce 1.1 million pounds. Let me show you the reason why. This news came out on the 26th of this month, and it says that the joint venture Inkai has halted uranium production. So, when did they stop production? From January 1st to around January 26th, they didn't operate the plant. The reason is that the plant was shut down because they couldn't provide the documents requested by the Kazakhstan Ministry of Energy. Fortunately, the plant is now operating well. So, in the first quarter, the production volume here was a bit low, and this probably had some impact on sales as well. They also mentioned this during the conference call, so I think it would be good for you to keep that in mind. So, Cameco earned $779 million in the first quarter. They said that this amount is a 24.4% increase compared to the same period last year. They also mentioned that net income was $48.5 million. They're not a company that's running at a loss. They're a profitable company. And regarding the impact of tariffs, during the conference call, the CEO said this: there are no tariffs on our natural uranium, UF6, and enriched uranium products. So, what they're saying is that none of the products they make will be subject to tariffs. What kind of tariffs are we talking about when you go to America? So, right now, the US, Canada, and Mexico have made a tariff agreement. Because of that, there are no tariffs on uranium. That's true in the short term. But since we never know when or how Trump might change his mind, I want to emphasize that we need to keep a close eye on this. Now, they're talking about the long-term contracting, the long-term contracts they have, and the average sales volume from 2025 to 2029. They're saying they'll be selling 28 million pounds of uranium per year. The contract periods with their customers are over a decade long. They're saying these are contracts that last 10 years, or even longer. And looking at it from a longer-term perspective, that's 220 million pounds of uranium, and then 85 million kilogram units. What does this mean? Right. They said that they will be selling 85 million kilograms of either U or UF6. It would be good to keep in mind that, in the long term, customers are expected to purchase this much. Now, moving on to their financial position, their liquidity is $361 million. So, they have $361 million in cash, and they're saying that they have access to an additional $1 billion that they can borrow in the future. Next, their current debt stands at $1.0 billion. They also mentioned that the company's credit rating is around BBB minus or just BBB. But I'm not sure if I should be paying close attention to this. Personally, I don't think it's something we need to worry about. Alright, next, this is something that came up earlier on. This was announced in November 2024, and what it means is that as Cameco's profits continue to grow, they've said they'll be increasing their dividends. So what did the CEO say? Right now, it's 12 cents per share. They're planning to raise this to 16 cents, and by 2026, up to 24 cents. So, how much is that in total? That's almost doubling it. They said they would double the dividend. So, even from the perspective of dividends, I think it's not bad. Because companies that pay dividends are, in fact, the kind of companies that really try to maximize their shareholders' interests. So, I think the news about increasing dividends was also really good. Personally, I think you can keep this in mind as well. What you're looking at now is the stock price chart I mentioned earlier. This is a 10-year stock price chart. So, right now, the price of uranium is steadily going up, and along with that, Cameco's stock price is also rising. So, with more and more countries adopting nuclear energy and nuclear power plants, and if we look at future demand, I personally think that the stock price could continue to rise by 2030 or 2035. Of course, there may be times when the stock price drops here and there, but in the end, I believe the stock price will keep going up. So today, we took a look at Cameco. Before we wrap up, there's a video uploaded by Cameco about the uranium production process. Let's watch that video together as we finish up. Thank you for listening. I'll be back after researching and summarizing the next company. Trip Nation observes everything from here. Afterward, we'll watch and do a radiation check.